Hi there, I'm back. Dorian Ellen Beldotan. I had the flu for weeks. I couldn't speak, which gave me a chance to think deeply about this topic, which I wanted to make a video about it before I got sick. So it gave me another month to think about it. In this video, I should like to say that the Karaite Jews, with whom I do not identify, deserve full recognition as Jews who hold as valid, if not more so, an interpretation of Torah than the rabbis do. Again, I am not a Karaite. I have no intention of being a Karaite. I'm not eating nobody's cheeseburgers anytime soon. No. I solved the problem of making sure I never boil a calf in its mother's milk by becoming vegan, which is a pretty extreme but comprehensive way of doing the mitzvah. And it also involves being kind to animals, which is also a Torah commandment. I've been looking into the Karaite way of life. They were right in rejecting the Talmud. They are familiar with the Talmud. In fact, the founder of the Karaite movement had been a Talmudist. Their critique is as trenchant as any that I have ever heard of Rabbinic Judaism. They are right on target with pointing out what is wrong in Rabbinic Judaism, which has proven itself to be not only ineffectual but actually damaging. It was believed that all of our problems were, of course, caused by the Gentiles in the diaspora. So all we had to do was come back to Israel and everything would be fine. Well, no. So I think that we've come to a point where we understand that Rabbinic Judaism is not our way forward. And most Jews are of a mind to put that behind us. The critique then of the Karaites, of the rabbis, is very important. It should be noted, and most Jews, even probably most Orthodox Jews, do not know that the way in which they are keeping many of the mitzvot, which they think go all the way back to biblical times, because they think that biblical times were then there, that they think that they're doing things the way they've always been done. In fact, and I'll link to this in the description to a very interesting article, it was in response to the Karaite movement that the Rif instituted many of the stringencies that have subsequently become part and parcel of Orthodox Judaism, like the separation of milk and meat for 6 hours after eating hard cheese, waiting 6 hours to eat meat, or after eating meat, waiting 6 hours to eat any cheese at all. The way it used to be done was the way Orthodox Jews today treat soft cheeses, whereas they'll eat soft cheese, wait a few minutes, rinse their mouth out, and then eat the meat. It used to be that way with the hard cheeses too. The Rif who changed that, and a number of other rulings. Things that were once optional were made obligatory because the Karaites weren't doing it. So to spite the Karaites, the Rif was willing to go against a biblical injunction of not adding two things. It is also known that during the First Temple period, Jews ate milk with chicken. In fact, it was considered a delicacy. And then the rabbis said that no, the chicken looks too much like meat. So let's separate milk and chicken too, as though chicken were beef. And then it became not to eat fish together with the United. It went on and on and on. Because they were not understanding the mitzvot correctly, they found themselves in the position of having to become ever more extreme, which also made them ever more ridiculous. And the Karaites have very good vision into this process. And I would recommend that people start looking into how the Karaites see Talmudic Judaism. Incorrectly rejecting the pseudo-Kabbalah, the Karaites threw the baby out with the bathwater. They do not interpret Hebrew scripts using the numerical values of the letters. Therein is their basic mistake, because it is specifically in the numerical analyses of Hebrew, together with the analyses of Hebrew grammar and Hebrew syntax, that we find the true oral Torah. Not the Babylonian baloney, the true oral Torah. So both the rabbis and the Karaites are wrong. But the Karaites are not more wrong than the rabbis. And because they are closer to the original texts, they have not damaged themselves by going so far afield. My understanding is that in order to be a Karaite, one has to learn Hebrew. There's no such thing as being a Karaite who is an illiterate in Hebrew or a semi-literate. They learn Hebrew, which means they have retained the original connection to the original tradition. My understanding is that there are a number of different Karaite communities in Egypt, in America, here in Israel, and they have somewhat differing views. They have different opinions about how to keep Shabbat. My understanding is that some do use electricity, some don't. I think that their interpretations of Torah are worth looking into. Not because they're 100% right, but because in comparing Rabbinic Judaism to another school of Judaism, we can see in what ways they are similar, and in many ways they're very, very similar. You feel right at home with Karaite Judaism, yet and still they're able to look at Rabbinic Judaism and see what's wrong with it. And I think it goes the other way as well, that the rabbis are able to look at the Karaites and see what's wrong with their interpretation. That they say there is no oral Torah. There certainly is an oral Torah, but it's not the Talmud. There certainly is a mystic tradition of Judaism, but it's not the Zohar. So I think in looking at them both, we get a more comprehensive view. It is not the rabbi's place to make a determination about who is going to be in the fold and who is not. To put an encompassing ban on Karaite Judaism was overstepping their authority. We have a right to look at differing opinions, differing approaches. My understanding is that here in Israel there are marriages between Karaites and Rabbinic Jews, and each couple makes the decision about how they want to navigate that. Some go the Karaite way, some go the Rabbinic way, some of them are secular, so they don't go either way. Each couple makes their own determinations, but the rabbis tried to stop Jews from marrying Karaites, and they have absolutely no right to make decisions like that. I think then that we Jews should begin to look into Karaite Judaism. In so doing, we force the rabbi's hand to acknowledge the fact that they exist. They would prefer that the Karaites didn't exist, that we didn't know that they exist. But they do. And there's a lot to be learned from them. There's a lot to be learned from the ways in which they are not correct, the ways in which they are, and the ways in which they're not. We are in dire, desperate need of, in some ways, returning to the original tradition as our mainstay, as our foundation. But together with that, creating a halakha that allows us to walk through the constantly changing vistas of the created world. And so herein, though I disagree with them on many points, I respect them very highly, and I would like to call for the recognition, full recognition, equal recognition of Karaite Judaism. And we do that by reaching out to them and learning what they have to say and embracing them. Thank you for listening. And thank God I've been able to say this. It took me more than a month from the time I wanted to make this video until I did, so I had time to process it a bit better. Thank you for